Well, hello my YouTube peeps, I am Cann, and it's getting pretty close to Halloween. I kind of want to be festive and decorate my house. So today, we're going to use these 20mm Cannon shells to build a bullet spider. So to give you kind of an idea how big these things are, there's your 9mm. And here's a 223. So these are pretty big. These are a steel casing. They've got some paint on them, so when we're welding them together, make sure we got the doors open, lots of ventilation in here and stuff. It takes about 52 of these to make a spider. You can do the same thing with 308. 308 shells work pretty good. The 223s are a little bit too small to weld. If you're really good at brazing, I'd imagine you could do brass shells, but I like to weld. So that's what we're gonna do with these. Let's get started.
Alright, we're going to start off by building the head of the spider. You're going to need 9 shells in total for this. You're going to put the first 7 together in kind of a hexagon shape, and that's going to make the actual head of the spider. The last 2 you will weld onto the front, kind of down low, and that's going to give you a set of fangs, give your spider a, authentic look, or whatever you want to say. Alright, I like to weld these things up pretty stout so that the spider doesn't fall apart and stuff. The problem you wind up having when you're welding shell casings is that the base of the shell casing is always thicker than the mouth. So you got to be pretty careful not to just burn through at the mouth of the shell casing, but you still have to have enough heat to be able to weld the bases. Okay, it should look kind of like this. Now I'm ready to weld the fangs on there. It's like I said before, they're going to be just a little bit lower down on the head of the spider. And this is going to be the front of the head. This is going to be essentially the face of the spider. Alright, we've got that done. We're going to set it off to the side and let it cool for a bit, and we'll start working on the main body of the spider. So the gist of the body is that you're basically repeating what you did with the head and building a hexagon, but you're adding another layer. This is going to require 19 of your shell casings. So just as a note, when I'm building these things, I try to make sure that I hide my welds as best as I can. It helps to build in kind of a circle. As you work your way out, the welds kind of get laid over by another shell. You wind up with some of the welds showing, but not as many. We've got the body of our spider situated. Now we're ready to put the head and the body together. Weld these together pretty well. You're going to use the legs to kind of brace all this when you get that far, but you want to make sure that this thing will hold up. It is pretty heavy and it's got to be able to support its own weight. You'll notice when I fit these together that a corner on the head kind of goes against one of the flat parts of the body. It should look kind of like this. We're going to set it off to the side to cool while we build our legs.
Alright, so now I gotta put the legs together. So they've got the body all built. And it's kind of a trick when you go to weld this kind of stuff. The mouth of the shell casing is pretty thin, and then the back end of it's a little thicker. And what you wind up doing is kind of welding, let's see if I can get this back in the frame here. Welding them together kind of like this. You wind up with 3 shells to make a leg. Kind of like so.
Now here's the thing about making legs for your spider, is you don't want them all to be exactly the same. I don't use a template or anything like that because you want the legs to look a little different. You think about a spider as it, comes down on its web or something, and the legs are always at a little bit of a different angle as it's trying to find something to grab onto.
What you wind up doing is building a pretty heavy weld on the thicker part of the shell and then leading it back into the thinner part to get some structural support out of these things. They actually should be able to hold your spider up after you've got them built. We can build 8 of those.
Now I've built a couple of these out of 308 shells, and they do work pretty well. But I will say that if you're gonna do something that small, it's probably in your best interest to have like a smaller welder, like a 110 welder that doesn't have a lot of amperage, or something that's got a lot of control to it, because they are pretty tough to weld without burning through. Alright, I've got the legs built. Now it's time to put them onto the spider. I always start with the back legs. You're gonna wind up welding these in there to where they actually brace against the main body of the spider. You remember a spider, the legs are all attached to the head of it, so you need all your legs to feed right onto the head of the spider, which is fairly small, so you wind up kind of overlapping them a little bit. As you can see, when I'm putting the first couple legs on the spider, I set it up on a couple of boards there. This gives you a little bit of spacing between whatever table or surface you're working on to adjust the legs and get them at the right angle. You want it to kind of look like it's trying to catch something, make it look a little creepy. Every time you get a set of legs put on, you want to flip the spider over and weld the bottom of the legs as well. Once again, you're kind of wanting the legs to be able to support the weight of the spider. That way, you know, it's fairly stout. I have found that it works best to do the back legs and then the front legs. That way you can kind of fill in with the other two legs in the middle. Gives it just a little better look and sets a boundary to where everything kind of turns out even.
All right, we've got our spider built. I've made mine to where it looks like it's going to be coming out of a tree, so it's going to be hanging down. So we've got a nice kind of wide leg span on it. All we've got left to do is drill a hole in the back of it here and run a piece of wire or cable or something into it so that we can have it hanging. That way it'll look like it's spinning a web as it's coming down out of the tree or off of the building or whatever we do. So yeah, let's do that and finish it up. Oh, we have to paint it as well, yeah. Gotta hose it off with brake clean and then shoot it clear, because where we've welded it, it can rust and go bad, so we'll do that as well.
All right, so we're just gonna drill a hole in the center shell of the back of the spider here. The hole needs to be just a little bit bigger than the cable that you're gonna use to hang the spider. By no means does it need to be snug. Now we're just gonna wash this thing down with some brake clean, let it dry really well, and then hit it with some paint. I'm just shooting mine clear. I like the way that the shell casings look all on their own. I've seen people paint them black and things like that. It looks neat, totally up to you. Do what makes you happy, stuff like that. And now we're just gonna let this thing dry overnight.
Okay, it's the next day. We let this thing sit and dry overnight. You can see it's not small. Oh, it's about 20 pounds. The clear coat adds kind of a nice gloss to it, which is cool. We've got our hole drilled in the back, and all we have left to do is run a cable so that we can hang it in the tree or something.
So the gist of this is that you're gonna push your cable through the hole in the end of the spider. You pull it about halfway through. You're gonna take the cable and separate the strands for a couple inches and put a nut in between the two strands. Then you'll wind the cable back together and make a loop. This way, when you pull the cable back through the hole and pull the nut up into that last shell casing, then the nut will keep the cable from pulling back out of the shell casing, kind of like this. And all we have left is to braid another loop on the other end of the cable. Make this one a little bigger so you can hang it in a tree or on a hook or something. You know, whatever's gonna do the job for you.
All right, we've got our cable. Spider can hang off of it. Let's go find somewhere to hang him up. Nice. Got it hanging in the tree. This is where people drive into my yard, so they'll be able to see it as they come and go up and down the street either way. All right, it's getting close to dusk. You can see that thing hanging up in the background there, pretty cool. Take a second to subscribe to the channel if you would, please. I'd appreciate it. I hope that you're all doing well and staying healthy. We'll see you later.